in Montreal. The earliest memories are living in Pointe Claire on St. John's Road. It was, for a kid, it was a nice neighborhood to grow up with. You knew the kids across the street, the kids next door, a couple of houses down. And then when I was 15, we moved away. We moved up to Ville-Lorraine, which is north of Laval. We didn't know the people who were growing up in the French houses not well. You might know them and see them, but you didn't communicate with them. I didn't speak French. They didn't speak English. And it was just that, and it seemed the culture was very separate. When I went to McGill, I was one of, I think, 5 kids that came from Rosemary High School that year, went to McGill. At the end of 6 years, I should have been finished architecture. It was a 6-year program. And I wasn't. I'd had a bad year the year before. But I couldn't bear going back again for another year at that point. So that's when I went to Europe. When I came back from Europe, then I went back and did another semester to finish my degree. And after that, I loved traveling so much. It just opened up so many new worlds. And I thought, well, I've got my degree. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have kids. I got no debts. I can do what I want. So why don't I do what I want until time comes where I've got to sit down and make a living? So I bought a bicycle, and then I decided I was going to leave and I was going to go out west. I always thought I'd wind out west. I just loved the mountains out there. Down in cowboy country there, I wind up being the hired hand on a family's ranch. The father, Pete, who was about 35 years old, and his wife, Mary, she was from Britain, and they had 2 little girls. When we'd get discussions going out delivering the hay, we'd get to impasses in our politics. And there'd been a hostage taking in Calgary that winter, and a policeman had gotten shot. And this was quite a big issue in over the winter in that area. And lots of people were screaming for bring back the death penalty and bring back hanging in the electric chair. And that's how the conversation was going along there. And everybody was saying that stuff. And I thought, I ought to express my opinion here because I'm vehemently opposed. And I just said, quite gently, I said, I didn't think the death penalty is a good idea. And Pete's dad, he didn't like me to begin with, probably because I was from Quebec. And he just lit into me, said I'd been watching too many Billy Jack movies or something. All of them were down my throat, just yelling and arguing. I couldn't get a word out. So it wasn't a discussion at that point. It was them all just belittling my opinion. This had a big effect on me, you know. Here, I'd been thinking all along I was going to wind up in Alberta somehow. So that night, my ideas about living in the West, they just flipped completely. I met a Swedish girl when I was traveling in Guatemala. So I said, well, I guess I'm going to Sweden. And since I was chasing the girl, I made efforts to learn Swedish because I didn't have a word of Swedish. I always thought I was just bad at languages. It just wasn't my strength. And I started to realize that, no, it's because I wasn't making any effort. And towards the end of my stay, I didn't get the girl, but we were good friends. And I remember having a conversation, and she, for some reason, started asking me about Quebec. And I explained to her, you know, the French people talk to French people and the English people talk to English people. And this explanation didn't make any sense to her. She probably had smatterings of 4 or 5 languages. So her attitude to languages was so much different from what mine was. And when I tried to tell her why I didn't speak French, it didn't make any sense. She said, well, why didn't you want to learn? And I didn't have a good answer. So when I knew things weren't going to work in Sweden, and when I came back, I thought, I can learn a language. I can learn to speak French. I just figured I had to make the effort. You know, after being in Alberta, where it's all the same language, and I thought I should be more in line with them, with the if I associated politics with language, which in Quebec it was. Out there, it wasn't the language problem was okay. It was what the politics were all about that was the problem. I sort of realized that I really missed hearing French in my ears. I found when I was in a place where it wasn't there, I missed it. So when I came back to Quebec, there was something comfortable. That it wasn't uncomfortable to be in a French milieu in Quebec. I think in those years wandering around, I think I was looking for roots. I wanted to have some roots. Growing up in a suburb, you don't feel like you got roots. There's no connection. There's no family connections in those places. My parents moved off. And when I wound up down here and I met Judy, I saw plenty of examples around me of people who had roots and what they meant. And they told me stories about their roots. And I didn't have stories about my roots, but my daughter was going to have some. I always found things to draw from the years of traveling and carrying my sketchbook around. When I came around here, it was like my role in the place. You know, somebody might be the guy who owns the grocery store, the hardware store, or somebody had a farm here. They had their identities in a way. Well, my identity was the artist. And all the kids in the school knew me as the artist. And sometimes I met somebody I didn't know, and they said, "What's your name?" I said, "Oh, Dennis Palmer." I said, "Oh, you're the artist." Many years ago, I was wanting to belong to somewhere. And now I don't ask that anymore. And I don't feel that urge. I say, well, here I am. There's not more I can do to belong here other than die and put her ashes on the garden.